Hey everyone, welcome to Jessistories. Today we have Amanda Montell. And if you like the YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, and please do leave a comment down below to help the algorithm with stuff. Amanda, to introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure. Well, my name's Amanda Montell, and I'm an author. I write about social sciences in kind of a fun way. My first book was called Word Slut, which is about language and gender. My background's in linguistics. And my second book, which is related to today's subject matter, well, both of my next two books were, I guess. Anyway, my second book is called Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism. It's about the language of cults from Scientology to SoulCycle. And then my third book is called The Age of Magical Overthinking, Notes on Modern Irrationality. And it's a kind of genre blendy reckoning with cognitive biases in the information age. And I also have some podcasts.
Which are super cool podcasts. And cognitive bias is my new favorite word, just so you know.
Yeah, use it. Learning that term definitely changed the way I move through the world.
I also use it against people now too, so thank you.
Just trying to help people feel smug.
There you go. What inspired you to write the art of magical overthinking?
But yeah, so the Age of Magical Overthinking was really inspired by some of what I was researching during the cultish writing process. I was looking into sort of the mechanics of cult influence, trying to sort of, pull back the veil on why people get involved with groups like Twin Flames Universe or Nexium, or even something as innocuous as like a really, really intense workout studio. There's a lot of sort of stereotyping about cult followers, and I was interested about like what sort of psychology and linguistic strategies were actually at play. And I kept coming across all of these mentions of cognitive biases, including confirmation bias, which some may have heard of. It's our tendency only to seek out and believe and remember information which validates our existing beliefs while discarding and forgetting information which controverts them. Or the sunk cost fallacy, which is our tendency to think that resources already spent on an endeavor justify spending even more. So, in a really low stakes example, you've already watched 5 seasons of some show that you're not even interested anymore, but you're this far in and you're attached to the characters and you paid the cable bill, so might as well keep going, that kind of thing. But those two cognitive biases also apply to why someone might stay in a high control group or a cult for longer than makes sense to anyone else, including them. And I was fascinated by that. But I had to kind of put some of the in-depth cognitive bias research to the side for the purposes of cultish, because that book would have gotten really unwieldy really fast. But I got the idea to write a book where every chapter would be dedicated to a different cognitive bias, which I would use as sort of a theme or lens to explore not necessarily cult stuff, but more the irrationalities that we see in our everyday life in the information age. So intense cycles of celebrity worship and dethronement, or, hardcore embrace of like TikTok manifestation gurus during times of crisis, to, feelings of panic that we all get in response to something as objectively innocuous as like an outdated clickbait headline. So I was just really interested in how our innate decision-making strategies that once helped us survive during a different time in history are now clashing with the information age.
Yeah, it's very relevant, honestly, to what's happening even right now as we speak and talk.
Yeah, it really is.
You already explained that. What is cognitive dissonance and its role in society today?
Oh my God. Its role in society, its role in my own life. Yeah. Cognitive dissonance is that really disquieting internal skirmish you feel when you're logically or through your powers of reasoning coming to a decision in one direction, but your intuition or maybe some of these cognitive biases are pulling you in another direction. So for example, in a cult situation, let's say, you've joined a group 5 years ago. Most of your friends are in that group. Let's say it's, a new age spirituality group. But you're starting to get the logical sense that like all of the money that you spent, it has disappeared, and all the promises that they made about your internal healing or whatever, you're not really seeing a return on those investments, so to speak. But at the same time, they're delivering you all of this word salad to help you justify your decisions to yourself. And, all of your friends are in this group, and you don't want to sort of have to acknowledge that maybe you made the wrong decision. And so you're being sort of like pulled in two directions at all times. That's an extreme form of cognitive dissonance, but we might feel cognitive dissonance in our daily lives. Say, you're offered like an opportunity at work that maybe goes against some value that you previously held. You're like, oh, well, I guess I could justify that. If I do some mental gymnastics, like, yeah, I could take that opportunity, whatever. That's cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. So like trying to think of an example, kind of like gaslighting in a sense, cognitive dissonance,
I guess
or
it is a feeling when you feel, yeah. Well, what it has in common with gaslighting is you're being pulled in two directions that have opposing points of view. Someone's doing something on purpose. But I guess, gaslighting is someone's intentional campaign to cause you to mistrust your own reality. And cognitive dissonance is like this internal feeling. I mean, yeah, when someone gaslights you, you could start to feel cognitive dissonance. Sure, maybe gaslighting is more, or sorry, cognitive dissonance is more like a symptom of gaslighting. Could be, maybe, but
I
yes,
could.
I
I
like
should Dr. Robin Stern. She was on here. I should have asked her that. I didn't think of that. But
it.
that's her forte. That's what she does, gaslighting. And it just
Nice.
reminded me of that because of the relationship she talks about in the beginning of her book, which is between just a one-on-one relationship of the man pretty much telling something different than what's actually happening. I don't know if that fully falls under it, but that's what
Yeah,
came
no,
to my head.
it does. It does because especially in like a cult-like scenario or in some kind of like emotionally abusive one-on-one scenario, yeah, like you're gonna take advantage of like the internal conflict that someone might feel or that cognitive dissonance, and you'll use it to your advantage if you're like the abuser.
That would make sense, honestly. And then this one's a fun one, just out of curiosity from, well, listening to your podcast and having read all your books that are currently published. Do you ever find yourself pretty much keeping track of your own behavior in order to change it?
I probably should be doing that more. Um, but yeah, and what's entirely too funny is, and I totally deserve this, is that my partner, my spouse, will who has also read my books. My third book is dedicated to him because it's really his exact genre of book that he likes. And so I really did in part like write it for him. But he will sometimes like clock a cognitive bias governing my behavior and he'll point it out. So like, I was attending a conference this past weekend, a writers conference, and it was like expensive to attend. Like the ticket was 300 something dollars. And so I like really wanted to get my money's worth. And so, but that required me to go back like multiple days in a row. And there was one day when like I was really exhausted and I didn't really want to go back. I didn't really think I had much more to learn, but like, well, of course I did. But I was like, I think I'm tapped. And I was like, oh, but I think I'm gonna go because I want to get my money's worth. And he's like, that's sunk cost fallacy. It's like I already spent the money, now I need to spend the time. And I was like, that's so fair. Like I'll stay home and do something else. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome, though.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I definitely clock some of the biases that I wrote about in my book in my own behavior sometimes, and it really does help because I'm able to notice like, oh, that is irrational actually, and like I don't need to panic in one way or another. And not always does like recognizing the irrationality like help you feel better, but sometimes it does, and sometimes it puts you on the right path because you're like, okay, I don't need to like go down that spiral. I can course correct and like do something self-care-ish instead.
Self-care-ish.
Self-care-ish.
Partial self-care. That's what I take that as, self-care-ish.
Self-care-ish.
I know with me, I track my behavior. Like I'm fully aware of it constantly, and I annoy myself. Actually, there's a cool meme on autism of someone saying I annoy myself with my own behavior. It's
Oh
so
my God,
great.
I definitely annoy the living shit out of myself. But I don't know if you relate to this. Like, also, those of us who make things for the internet and edit those things and have to be confronted with our own likeness. That's a recipe for being double annoyed with
Yeah, like with these interviews, once it gets edited, I don't watch it again. I leave it to you guys to decide what you want out. I don't watch it until it's back on again.
Yeah, I know. And like, I really do not look at, consumers like reviews of my work. It's kind of none of my business. But in the past, when I have in a moment of weakness, like caught someone saying something about like how they find my voice annoying or whatever, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, get in line. I've been finding myself annoying for 33 years. So like,
That's
you
hilarious.
think you have something new to say? Like,
Yeah, I've never liked my voice. So I was a critic of my voice, at least since I was born. So there you
I like
go.
your voice. You have a very unique speaking voice. You should embrace that. I mean, do whatever you want, but I like your voice.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You are only the second person to ever tell me that. The first one would be my mom. So there you go.
Your mom's iconic. No, I think your voice doesn't sound like everybody else's voice. And that's a beautiful thing.
I used to think it sounds like a man, but not as much anymore. Now I don't know what it sounds like, so I'm going to stick with what you said. It's unique.
It is. It's unique.
And then a really fun one is, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Well, okay. I'm not sure if this is the right pronunciation. I think the emphasis might be on a different syllable, but it's a Parasaurolophus. Someone's surely gonna correct me, but it's the
I won't.
the dinosaur that has like a hollow crown. And speaking speaking of like making noise, that hollow crown allows it to like project noise across long distances. So it's the podcaster of dinosaur.
That's really cool, though. I was just going with my childhood dinosaur of I had to look up the name because I didn't know the formal name, but the Bronchosaurus. It's
Oh, oh,
the
cool.
long neck one. Because I had an
Okay.
invisible friend that was a Bronchosaurus when I was little, named Scaly. So I thought I'd reference that in our interview.
That's so cute. For reference, anyone who doesn't know why you're not to usurp your interview, but for anyone who's like, why are we talking about dinosaurs now? In the confirmation bias chapter of The Age of Magical Overthinking, I have a scene at an animatronic dinosaur exhibit, a scene from my life. And I love dinosaurs is also just the explanation. Who doesn't, you know?
Well, you have aliens in there too. I read
Yeah.
everything. Most of it I read, some after I listened to your podcast, and some I read in between. But yeah, I read it all the way,
Thank you so much.
from the dedication to everything.
Oh, wow. The acknowledgments, the
Yeah, well,
bibliography.
acknowledgments are harder for me, but I can do the dedication page. But when it comes to acknowledgments, I can read a sentence of it. I think I did read at least one sentence of it.
Oh, nice.
That's my
Good.
attention span. So
Okay, so fair. I jump to that. Sometimes I read the acknowledgments. Well, now this is just like author brain, poison brain, but like sometimes I'll read the acknowledgments first because I'm just like curious to see like who a certain author, like who their editor was, who they were friends, who are their author friends. Like I'm just curious about like authors' relationships because it's such a disparate community sometimes. Like authors are so isolated and yet like you can connect with them on social media if you want, which I forget. I forget I can slide into the DMs of my favorite authors and be like, I'm a fan of your work. Which I've started doing because why not? But I love reading the acknowledgments because it's like a window into their real life.
that's true. I like going based off of the book first. I used to do this, like Nicholas Sparks. I read all his books, and then I eventually learned about his life from there. And then there's other authors that I've known about lives first before reading, but it's always interested me too. But with you, you're pretty open regardless, whether it's podcasts or you're being interviewed on someone else's thing, you're pretty
You would
open.
think
So
You would think, I mean, it's so funny. Like, I definitely like barely share about my real life. What's like, I mean, people sometimes I'll interact with someone in real life and we'll get into a conversation. Maybe they've listened to my podcast or whatever. And I mean, I'm bringing this up now, but I'll start talking about my pets. So they're like, you have a dog and two cats. I never see them on your Instagram. Or like, I've interviewed my dad on my podcast because he's a cult survivor and that was relevant. But I don't know. I definitely see other people who are in a similar position to me, just like career wise, sharing more of their personal life. And sometimes I'm like, oh, should I like attempt to endear people to me by showing my real life? But then I don't know. I kind of like I do feel like I have boundaries for some reason. But
You're good.
I'm glad that people feel like they
Well, you're allowed to have boundaries. Boundaries are good. But to me, at least, you seem open. Like, no, you don't go in depth, but you don't have to either. You at least give a little something.
Yeah, it just like but I guess I also feel like people don't need to hear me like ramble about my real life. Who cares? You know, like there's some Flaubert quote that I bring up sometimes. Let me not butcher it. I'm actually gonna
Okay.
bring up the real Flaubert quote. It's like I should really memorize it, but oh yeah. Gustave Flaubert once said, "Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work."
Oh, nice. I like that
So
a lot.
I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah, people don't need to see my boring life.
Well, boring's a good thing because,
Yeah,
yeah, if it goes to, yeah, could lead to cults. So,
that's true. But yeah, when people go out looking for something that's not boring, sometimes they get a little too much of it.
or other things happen too, but we won't go too full into that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I say boring is good. Because I like bringing this up because there's so many stereotypes against autism. I do have a schedule that I sometimes stick to, but schedules are nice.
Love a schedule. Love a calendar. Love a list. Well, I'm not in my list era right now. Anyway.
I'm not in my list. I have those time periods too of lists and not lists. The only time I have to actually keep track are these interviews because I lose track otherwise. So I have to write them down in multiple places or else I will forget.
Yes, I definitely I meticulously prepare my interviews as well. Have to for me.
Yeah, I've learned a little from you actually on how to do
Oh,
interviews.
no way.
But I didn't even realize we did similar ways until I listened to Magical Overthinking. I thought I was the only one that did the introduce yourself, but you did it too. But I wasn't aware of that until I
Wait,
actually
what do you
listened.
mean the interviews myself?
Like on Magical Overthinking, you have most of your guests introduce themselves. You don't introduce them.
Oh
And I thought that
yeah.
was just a thing I did, but no, you do it too.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, why do I do that? I don't even know. Well, maybe it's because I think it's fun to hear people identify their work in their own voice. Or maybe another podcast that I love has people do that. I don't know. I don't know why I have people do that.
I only do that because I find it awkward when someone else introduces you who only
Anyone
has read
listening?
about you or seen snippets of you or introducing you. It just is awkward to me. But if that's the way people do podcasts, that's fine. I know some people that have had me on their podcast do it that way, but for me
I
personally, it's
actually
weird.
noticed. I noticed when you had me introduce myself in this interview because it normally never happens. But I'm just like, oh, I'll tell you.
Well, yeah, I feel better when the other person just says about themselves. It's weird for me to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally, well, I guess sometimes I do try to introduce my friends at a party and things and like hype them up, you know?
Well, they're your friends. That's to be
Yeah.
expected.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Anyway, sorry,
normal.
I've gotten us off track.
But yeah. Okay. And just so you know, I can't read my own handwriting, so I don't know fully what I wrote here. But
We'll figure it out.
okay, I have a cheat sheet. I make sure everyone knows. And my
Nice.
handwriting is sloppy, so this is a word from your recent published book of do you ever feel loofit after reading a book? So, and do you have any
Oh,
favorite books?
loose left.
There
Loose
you go. Thank you. Loose left.
Yes, that's from John Koenig's Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. I did not make that up, but yes, there's a chapter in the book where I quote some of John Koenig's beautiful book. it's called The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, and it's a book full of made up neologisms, made up words for experiences that haven't already been named in English. And yeah, loose left is one of his words that means that like melancholy that you feel when you finish a really good book. Um, Yes. Oh my God. I feel super loose left often. Well, not as often as would like. I'm really picky. I read in kind of an odd way. But yeah, when I love a book, I become obsessed with it. And if I'm not obsessed with a book, I tend like not to finish it. But
Same. Okay, sorry.
yeah, no, I mean, like I have friends who are very completionist, and will, finish every book they pick up, or they feel like guilty. But I've just, yeah, I think I've just come to honor that, like, I have very particular taste, and I don't even like stand by my taste. Like, I don't even think like, I just like what I like. Kind of like what we were saying earlier. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
there's actually a book that I finished reading last year that I still mourn finishing. Um, The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her first name right, but it's a yeah, a really cool sort of historical time travel sci-fi romance, which is not really a genre that I fuck with, but the voice of this book was so delish, and I'm sad it ended just purely because of the way that she used language. It was so fun to be in that. So yeah, I feel loose left about that, and I'm trying to find my next like read that to be obsessed with. I've read quite a few things this year that I really liked, but nothing that left me quite loose left. What about you?
Well, I love anything Kaylin Byron. Like I always read everything of hers. She
Okay.
is in the queer sapphic world of writing. And yes,
Sorry,
I
I
read
was
it so
gonna say, actually, it didn't leave me loose left quite, but I did really enjoy a book that I read oh wait, I guess it was at the end of last year. Which is I don't know if you would like it, but it's this like a very gay South
yes, I will
Elegant.
automatically.
It's called Perfume and Pain, which is a title named after this like lesbian pulp novel from the 70s. And
Yeah, I love them.
but Perfume and Pain, the newer book, is written by Anna Doran, who's like a lesbian LA author. And she's written a bunch of books. She has a very particular style that I really enjoy. The book, it takes place in Southern California, and it's about like queer writers in my town. And so I just was like absolutely tickled by it because I felt like I knew the people in it. But anyway, I recommend that. It is such an amusing book.
Well, I had a bookstagrammer. I don't know what they are technically called. People that review books for a
Yeah.
living that are gay and part of the queer community. I have a little section on my YouTube channel for that, and one of
Oh
them
yeah.
did actually say, because it sounds familiar, this exact title.
Good.
And we did talk about it, but I don't remember it fully because I tend to blank out after interviews. But
Same.
I did write it down once, so
Good, good. Yeah,
I am gonna have to read it. But do you know how many pages it is? Because I have to do like 300 pages as my max.
it's not long. I'm the same way. Like there are a few exceptions, but I definitely when it comes to honestly, when it comes to fiction or nonfiction, like something has to be a real exception to the rule for me to go past 300 pages. I totally agree with you. This is a snack. It's a short
Okay,
novel.
thank goodness, because yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have high attention spans. Yeah, I'm getting myself back into reading. I'm actually reading one that's forcing me to go further in. She's a self-published author that I want to have on here to interview. She is part of the Black queer community, just
Oh yeah.
like Kaylin Byron is too.
Cool.
But yeah, I would like
Oh
both of them
yeah.
on here too. But yeah, we'll see when I reach out.
Nice. Good for you. I love like I just think this channel is such a great thing to do. Good job.
Just so you know, all the interviews eventually, I don't know when, but I'm making sure to forewarn everyone. So when you get the surprise email, it's not an actual surprise because you were forewarned. I am gonna put it on Spotify and everything else like that. Once I get my music done and I can speak, have written the song I would like to have at the beginning for the, I guess, podcast version, which will only be every time I interview people as part of the podcast version of Jessi Stories.
Amazing. That's awesome. Good for you. I know, listen, I meet so many people in my day-to-day life who like talk about launching a project like this. And I know how much work it is, but it's just cool that you're like doing the damn thing.
Well, it's just me. The only other person that technically works under me is my website designer. That is it. It's just me otherwise.
Yeah. It's not easy. I know that all too well. But yeah, maybe one day you'll have a whole staff.
That's my goal. I want to have a complete queer, neurodivergent, disabled staff.
That's
That's my
awesome.
ultimate goal to get to because I have my publishing company, Oneness Love Publishing, and it does exist, and I've published only my books through it so far, but I want to have it free to minorities and to
I
get
love
their work
that.
out there.
That's so great. That's so great. Fuck
That's
yeah.
my goal. I'm not there yet. The YouTube channel is like a small start, and my memoir hopefully will help add to it. And actually getting my website fully up could help too. But
Yeah, I think some people get overwhelmed by how long it takes to build like a media platform. But you're right, it just takes time and you just have to start slow and like I set the bar for myself so low. Like I I really do. Like I this is gonna sound like a ridiculous statement, but like I have far surpassed every goal I've ever set for myself because
nice. I love that.
I don't mean that like braggadocious way. I mean that because I set the bar for myself so low. And that keeps morale really high, you know, because I'm always just like, oh, I only, you know, I set really low word count goals for myself for the day when I'm writing so that I never disappoint myself because it feels terrible to disappoint yourself and to not be able to like say you did what you meant to or that what you set out to do that day. And so I never want to feel that way. I never want to feel like, oh, I suck, I suck. And sure enough, like I do still feel that way sometimes. But if I just like act like, oh, I'm doing this like very low stakes thing, you know, like even my dog could like meet this little goal I set for myself today, then I'm just like, oh, I did it. And sometimes I end up doing more than that. And yeah, so anyway, starting small and building, I endorse that approach.
I've started doing that gradually because I used to overwhelm myself too with writing. Right now, since I'm writing, I tend to be writing a lot of books at once. So I have two right now in the publishing process, and then three that I'm writing. So I try to set a goal for each one, but it's still overwhelming on top of this. And then just doing interviews for Escaping Twin Flames and people wanting, since CTV did happen, really wanting interviews now. Um,
Oh, I really do understand. Yeah. Oh, now that I'm thinking about it, actually the not sorry, not to like go back to the like queer
go for it.
novel topic of conversation. I am right the novel that I'm currently writing has a gay love story in it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so
Just
excited.
I was just
Yay.
writing a kissing scene yesterday.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, it's
Well,
really fun.
hopefully more people will read gay that way too,
I hope so, definitely.
because it's still a very minority read, at least of what I've seen,
Yeah, let me try to think of like the most mainstream like gay love stories that I've read in books.
that
I
are
mean, I
not
read a lot
stereotypical, because some
that
of them do write very stereotypical that are
yeah, yeah.
not that realistic.
I think I'm blanking. But also I have trouble identifying what's mainstream and what's not because when I get obsessed with something, I think everyone's obsessed with it also,
I
even if
love
it's
that.
like a really niche thing. So I don't even know what's mainstream.
I don't know, because with me at least I've learned most things I like are not mainstream. Like my sister, as you know, introduced me to your writing in the first place, and then I also told her, yeah, I was on her podcast. You should listen to it. It was
That's
fun to do that to her. I did that to her in person of, hey, you can look it up. And she did it on her computer. She's really smart. She's like a hacker. She's loves language herself, so that makes sense why she liked you so much as a writer and introduced.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so great.
she's very smart. You guys speak very similar too, so when
Oh,
I talk to you, I just feel like I'm talking to my sister.
oh, that's so sweet. I would love to meet her. I don't think I mean, I would like to hear how I sound to other people.
Well, you speak her, but I also speak her because, we kind of grew up together. So,
Does she have a similar voice to yours?
she has a deeper voice to mine,
Oh,
and
even
she's much
deeper.
taller than me. I'm very short.
How tall are
But
you?
what?
How tall are you?
I go between 5 foot 2.5 and 3 because I don't honestly know. So that is all I can tell you.
Fair. I'm only 5'1".
Woo! I'm taller than you technically.
Yeah, no, I would love to be 5'2.5".
So I bet you anything if we were to stand next to each other would be the same height. Because, like I told you, I don't fully know, and I shrink
Oh,
sometimes, and I grow sometimes, and
oh,
it's
but that sounds
never the same.
real.
So
Okay. Yeah. I wish I could control my shrinking and growing.
I wish I could too, because
Some days I would want.
I bet you anything I've shrunk, because that's what happens with age. So I am guessing I shrunk, because I rarely go to the doctor and I rarely check my height. So
No, honestly, same. Honestly, same. I actually could not tell you how tall I am at this moment.
pretty much on the same page fully. But yeah, my sister is to thank for this all, except, yeah, she was shocked that I was on your podcast and I told her how I did it.
That's awesome. Love that.
Yeah. But uh speaking of your recent book, what is your typical day of just sitting down, writing, and getting yourself in the zone to finish a novel?
Yeah. Well, so my process with this novel is a little different so far because thus far I've only written nonfiction. And with a nonfiction project, you start with a proposal, and that's how you sell the book to a traditional publisher based on basically this like lengthy pitch, which includes a sample chapter and a chapter breakdown. So you kind of know exactly where you're going. And there's, an argument that you're trying to convey, a thesis. Um, and yeah, I have historically set myself up on a pretty like regimented schedule in order to not just meet but like turn in my book early. I like to be early with my deadlines just so that I don't feel like stressed or like I'm coming up against like an imposing doom-filled deadline. So yeah, I try to give myself like less time so that I have like a little slack later. But with this novel, I mean, you can take a novel anywhere. Like you're just making it up. And I've been thinking about the plot and sort of the world that I want to build and what I want to say on like a deeper level with the book for like 2.5 years, but I only just started writing it 6 months ago. So I was kind of like holding this story in my head for like years, which is not how the nonfiction process works because every idea that I came up with, I would like write it down immediately and use that as fodder for the proposal. But with this, it was just like this made up story in my head that was like just this overly drenched sponge. And then I kind of started writing it very casually without kind of meaning to. I just like started taking notes on my phone one day and then I finally started like squeezing out the squeezing out the sponge. And now, for some reason I've put myself on this very intense deadline where I like want to finish the novel at the first draft of it anyway by the summer.
Jeez, that's
So I'm on this schedule where I'm like basically writing a chapter a week. And sometimes I'm writing every day. Sometimes I'm just writing like 3 days a week because I also have to do my two podcasts and like other freelance gigs and things like that. So yeah, there's like a rigid schedule, but flexibility within the rigidity, I guess. And what helps though is that I just think it's so fun to write. I'm having the best time. Like I think it's a blast to make up these characters and see where they go. And I do have an outline, so that helps in terms of just like keeping me on track. But yeah, again, I set my writing word count goals for the day really low. I want to write like 500 words a day and that's it. some people, I talk to authors sometimes who are like, I have to wake up at 6 a.m. to like write 3,000 words before I go off on my day. And I'm just like, oh my God, I would be in such a self-loathing place if that were my daily goal because I would just never meet it. Um,
I
yeah.
wouldn't either. I set mine to
Yeah.
1,000 and I haven't even met that yet.
That's a lot of words, that can be hours. So I just try to be like really, I try to treat myself like I am just like a little dummy and like can like barely do anything. And that, yeah, that helps. But again, it also helps that I just really love writing this story and I find it so fun to like escape into this world that I've made up.
Which is exciting. I'm excited to find out what that world ends up being. And actually, when you spoke about authors that do that, I had Rebecca Thorne. She's in the queer, I guess, D&D, even though she doesn't do D&D, but that's what she writes within queer D&D world. She was on my interview thing, this, and she talked about what she does. I think she says like 5,000 words, and then yeah, it's become her
That's
full time because she was made on TikTok. TikTok helped. She's self-published and now she's with a publisher on
that's
that one
cool.
book that she's
Yeah.
already written. Gosh, it's like 5 books total of a series now that she's written fast. And she's
Yeah, it's a different genre. And I can, yeah, and there's such voracious demand for that type of book that she probably, yeah, has to put herself on these really aggressive word count deadlines. Whereas if you're writing something that's not not going to be consumed so voraciously, frankly, then there's not that same demand. And there are just like different books offer different things. So yeah, I'm definitely taking my time with it. But that's awesome. That career, like book talk,
move.
like that, I mean, it's amazing what book talk has been able to do for certain authors. And controversial. I actually just did an episode of Sounds Like a Cult on the Cult of Book Talk.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I haven't gotten the chance to listen to it though. I do still
It
listen. I don't always have the time to, but I do still listen.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't have the time either. But yeah, that would no, I do listen to I am very involved in every episode that goes live. But yeah, so much podcasting.
So much podcasting, yes. But at least you have the words for it all. That's why I write down mine. Though I know you do too, partially, at least it shows
Yeah,
on our recordings too.
yeah, yeah. I write everything down.
Okay. And then I'll ask it anyways, even though you kind of answered it. What is a cult and its function?
Oh my God, we're back here.
We're back here. Yeah, we'll continue going back there anyways. At least until the
Okay,
very last one.
what is a cult and its function? I mean, my whole shtick is that it's incredibly hard to definitively identify what a cult is. I mean, certainly many people have made many attempts to create rubrics to help identify a cult or group with charismatic leaders, ends justify the means philosophies, us versus them mentalities, um, you know, coercive language, exploitation of various kinds, abuse of various kinds. And that I argue that that type of high control group can show up in places where you might not think to look. And its purpose, I guess, is to, gain and maintain power over a flock. And that can show up in, a sort of like fringy religious setting, or it could show up in like a Silicon Valley startup setting.
I know they also like to use religion as a cover-up since it's harder to sue a religion than it is to just like using, for example, in my personal opinion, to cover myself. uh, Twin Flames Universe does have Church of Union, and they do, which they're even on video saying they opened it so they don't have to pay taxes. There are reasons why God and Jesus become so important in cults sometimes, not because they actually care.
So true. Yeah, that's a trajectory that a lot of these really damaging groups have followed, including Scientology and Jonestown and
And
well, Jonestown always had a religious aspect, but um
they kind of did, in a
yeah,
sense,
yeah, they
because
did.
Kool-Aid, that is still, if you think of the Jesus blood, I guess. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
I
but
do have some background
that
religion.
is true, just symbolically, yeah. But Jim Jones started out as like a kind of integrationist pastor, and then, but yeah, the what they all have in common is this opportunism. They will, follow the path of least resistance, the path that, allows them to remain in power the longest. And if that is a religious path, they'll take the religious path. If it's, a wellness path, they'll take the wellness path.
Or religious and wellness combined. There's a lot of those,
Yes.
including with some that are still, there's a lot of cults still functioning today, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, on Sounds Like a Cult, we have an episode coming out soon. Maybe by the time this publishes, it'll already be out, but on Kundalini Yoga and 3HO. And that's really where like spirituality, religion, and wellness intersect. And that's a group that's still at large. It's not at its peak, but yeah. I sort of have
yes,
to
to
go,
go. Okay.
but let's finish up, or we can do like a wrap up. I'll just
Okay.
let the people know that I'm meeting with next that I'm gonna be a second.
Okay. We can
Second.
do it quick. The
Okay.
wrap up, because I'll leave down below where they can find you.
Okay, sweet. Be there. Okay, cool.
Okay. We shall do wrap up time.
Cool.
So thanks so much for being here and answering my questions and us actually going into fun conversations.
Happily. Thanks for having me.
And then if you liked this interview, please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and then embrace your truth, tell your story. You have a story to tell. I have a story to tell. We all have a story to tell. Tell your story. And then peace until next Saturday.